I am the CEO of an 85-year-old funeral service organization. No week goes by, members of Congress, that I don't service the families of at least two gun violence victims. I have to service them and then try to counsel them and try to answer the question that is invariably asked by the mothers and fathers of the children that I service and that question is one word. Why, Mr. Leek? Why?
In 2019, over 38,000 people died in the United States by the hands of gun violence. And whether you're aware of it or not, gun control is not only one of the biggest problems that America is faced with today, but one of the most dividing. Citizens either advocate strongly for the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, or they feel that stricter gun laws must be put in place in order to prevent gun violence. But in order to find a solution, we must first understand the rhyme to both of their reasons.
As somebody who is very familiar from my military training with weapons of war, somebody who carried a rifle and a pistol around a foreign land on the orders of a president, there are some weapons that just don't belong in our neighborhoods in peacetime in America.
I believe we need to be smarter and use the research and use our lessons from some of the states that have tighter gun laws and see what has worked.
Although it is clear that there needs to be limitations on the Second Amendment, we need to understand the importance of that right in America. In a country where the crime rate is above average, owning a gun needs to be an option that is available to every American.
My life experiences have taught me the importance of the Second Amendment. Police cannot be everywhere, and gun-free zones never achieve their intended goal of stopping violence. It's a lesson we have learned many times over, but politicians in D.C. can't seem to wrap their heads around the idea that for once, giving people their rights back instead of taking them away might be the solution.
And the truth of the matter is that I'm in favor of the right to bear arms. I think even recent times would be a good indicator of why we as a people should have the right to bear arms.
In a nation where we are granted not the privilege, but the right to bear arms, it becomes increasingly clear with every passing instance of this right's exercise that citizens should handle it with much more care and responsibility. However, we must stay concerned about the growing population of major mental health crises among the nation. We can see that poor conditions in early childhood can escalate as far as gang violence as well as negligence towards pre-existing mental illnesses.
It was clear that those young men, if you go back to that history, had mental health concerns. Every governor that does not want to move on any aspect of gun safety regulation raises the question of mental health. There is no doubt that as long as we languish in the sea of inaction and talk about what we can do, we will do nothing.
What the problem is that oftentimes this is communicated by a court, but let's say nobody on the outside, the mental health treatment, nobody's following up. So there's a lack of communication between agencies. If you remember the Virginia Tech shooter, he was actually ordered for mental health treatment. He had a lot of restrictions on him. The judge ordered it. Nobody in the community or the mental health agencies followed up. So he fell through the cracks. And because of that, he went out and he got himself a gun and he shot everyone up. So I think the problem with the mental health restrictions is not necessarily what we're doing. It's the lack of communication between the courts and mental health providers. So I would work on that.
With gun violence, it is clear that there needs to be stricter regulations and limitations to owning a gun in the United States. But the question lies with saying, what actions need to be taken in order to draw a line in gun control?
So there was a really popular initiative in the 1990s. It was called Operation Ceasefire. And it was a very well concerted effort among law enforcement, probation, business owners, social workers, mental health workers. They found they were able to trace a problem in Massachusetts in a specific area to gang violence with guns. And so they decided to pull every lever, meaning they came down on the gangs, punishment-wise, they were rating them a lot, but they also said, look, turn over your guns and we'll offer you job assistance. We'll offer you checks for certain things. We're going to help you. We're going to come down on you, but we're going to help you too. And they were very successful in getting a lot of the gangs to give their guns away, and they saw a real reduction in homicide. So there's a way to do it. It's just you need a very problem-oriented approach, and you need patience, and you need to hang in for the long term.
America is constantly referred to as one of the worst countries in the world when it comes to control on gun violence. Although a part of this may be true, it is only because of our diverse conversation that is happening in this country. And the fact that we're able to have such a conversation is one of the reasons America is so great as a nation. But one thing stands clear. That conversation is useless unless there's action taking part after it. As one country, we must compromise, not with the left side or the right side, but both sides. That is what the United States of America was built on. I believe we must look back on actions and speeches to give us intellect and wisdom when it comes to gun control. Our job as citizens are to appoint people who will become the change that we want to see. Thank you.